fees.
Yes, Daddy.
But are you doing these things too? And do you practice social distancing? Do you keep 3 to 6 feet away when you're shopping? Or at least stay an arm's length away in the supermarket? Remember, children learn from adults. So if you're not obeying the precautions, neither will they. We have to work towards the new normal together to keep our families safe and protected. Be part of the solution, don't add to the problem. Teach by example and do the right things.
A message from the Child Care and Protection Agency, Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, and UNICEF.
This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Good day. Welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio for Monday, November 21st, 2022. In the news today, the manager of a company that is a shareholder of Guyana Exploration Limited, a company that holds a 30% interest in Guyana's prolific silver block, has stated that it will be patient and stick beside Hess, owing to Crown Jewel, Guyana. This was reported by Barron's last August. Barron's is a leading source of financial news, providing in-depth analysis and commentary on stocks, investments, and how markets are moving across the world. We had reported that for the third quarter of 2022, Exxon announced that its overall earning was a record-shattering $19.7 billion, whereas Hess reported that it earned a net income of $515 million and Silver recorded $5.1 billion. Notably, under the PSA, neither Exxon nor its affiliates pay taxes. As such, it would mean that Guyana forgoes each year billions of US dollars. Meanwhile, the PPP administration is adamant that they will abide by sanctity of contract and not renegotiate the deal. Meanwhile, the Auditor General, Mr. Deodat Sharma, in his first full-year review of the PPPC government, has found that the company, owned by the friend of Vice President Bawar Jagdeo, received over $7 billion in contracts to supply medical products to the Ministry of Health. But at the time of the audit, over $478 million in drugs were yet to be delivered. An analysis of the payments found that a total of $13.8 billion was withdrawn and spent to procure medical supplies to 14 agencies. Notably, New Guyana Pharmaceutical Corporation, owned by Dr. Rajesh Singh Ramrup or Bobby Ramrup, received the bulk of money from the ministry to provide drugs. And scores of passengers bound for New York and other destinations missed their flights after a truck reportedly broke down at Grove along the east bank of Demerara Public Road on Saturday evening at around 19 hours. Passengers and residents along the east bank were left stranded for hours. One individual recounted that it took them an hour and a half to move from Sterling to Little Diamond. The East Bank Demerara Highway is the only road to the Cheddi Jagan International Airport, and the traffic madness erupted just after the truck blocked off one of the lanes. Many of the passengers began reaching out to the media for the traffic situation to be publicized so that the relevant authorities can send traffic ranks to assist. Traffic ranks tried their best, but it took a while for the truck to move into the corner of the road so that the traffic could flow again. And moving on, retired Chief Probation and Social Service Officer and former head of the Child Care Protection Agency, Anne Green, has called on the government to adjust the salaries of frontline social care workers as part of its promised package to members of the disciplined services and health care. During the announcement of the 8% pay hike for public servants last week, the president said that consistent with the various measures his government has taken to assist Guyanese and has instructed that options be identified for adjustment to the salaries paid to a number of specific categories of public sector employees. And just before we head to a short break, coming from oilprice.com, last week at the COP27 Climate Summit in Egypt, U.S. climate envoy John Kerry announced that the potential for a carbon offset program that could go a long way to helping developing countries establish their renewable energy industries. Companies may be given the opportunity to invest in clean energy projects and other countries to counterbalance their greenhouse gas emissions if they fail to reduce their carbon output at home. It also responds to the growing global demand for clean energy. The new carbon offset plan, known as the Energy Transition Accelerator, would allow companies in the U.S. to invest renewable energy projects in developing countries to support the global transition away from fossil fuels. You're listening to Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 and 99.5 FM. This is your news at noon. We'll return shortly after the break.
It's Giftland's biggest sale ever this Black Friday from Friday, November 18th up until Friday, November 25th. Get up to 80% off on selected items in store. We have huge discounts on electronics, household, clothing, shoes, accessories, cosmetics, furniture, and more. VIP customers enjoy exclusive discounts from Friday, November 18th to Sunday, November 20th. Get your Christmas shopping done now and save big.
This Christmas, get the best deals at Digicel. Save big with up to 50% off selected handsets. Get the Logic L63 smartphone for only $15,000 or the Samsung A037 for $31,000. Plus, a free 30-day Prime bundle with the purchase of any smartphone to enjoy the things you love. Hurry in store for this limited time Christmas offer. Digicel. It's the Christmas that keeps on giving.
Welcome back. Let's continue with the news. Security cameras inside the Stabroek Market on Wednesday captured the moment a thief walked up to a customer shopping at a cell phone stall and snatched her bag. The footage showed that the middle-aged woman was engaged in a conversation with a salesgirl when the thief snuck up on her and ripped the shoulder bag off of her shoulder. He then sprinted away, making good his escape. This petty crime took place exactly 1 day after the Ghana Police Force launched its quote-unquote robust policing plan for the Christmas holidays. Commander Simon McBean, in his PowerPoint presentation, related that over 200 anti-crime patrol ranks will be on the road for the holidays on a 24-hour basis. He also noted statistically that Georgetown is one of the areas where most crimes occur. Meanwhile, the body of the Linden boat captain, who was allegedly pushed overboard by his passengers, was on Sunday recovered from the Demerara River. According to police, the remains of 55-year-old Alec Alexander floated up around 10 hours. Meanwhile, the two passengers accused of pushing him overboard remain in custody. They were identified as two brothers, and the Region 10 Police, Hugh Winter, stopped short of saying if the men had admitted to the accusations, but disclosed that they were the only two persons found by the police in the boat when it was recovered. And now let's tell you, the Oil and Gas Governance Network, a civil society organization, is adamant that is demanding that the terms announced by the government for future production sharing agreements be applied to the Stabroek block, where over 11 billion barrels of oil have been rediscovered. One of its members, Darshanand Kushial, in a letter argued that while the oil companies can boast of Ghana being responsible for its sudden growth in shares and profits, Guyanese, on the other hand, are struggling to make ends meet and living in poverty. He believes that if Guyanese politicians cared about the interest of the people, they would immediately call for the enforcement of the permits granted by the EPA that require full liability coverage. In fact, Kusial noted that the politicians would demand that Exxon immediately stop pumping above the 120,000 barrels per day safe operating limit, since this is a much bigger risk in the absence of full liability coverage. and adamant that the current rate of inflation will eat into the meager increase imposed on public servants. The AFC is arguing that the 8% increase should be non-taxable. In fact, the party believes there is an urgent need for the minimum wage to be increased for both the private and public sectors to at least $150,000 per month. AFC's leader Kemraj Ramjatan stated the effect of the present-day inflation on the purchasing power of public servants requires more than 7 and 8% increases. The PPPC government unilaterally has granted inflation rates, which is estimated to be over 10% this year and even more last year, have eaten into the income of public servants. And moving on, the Ministry of Agriculture on Saturday launched its Agriculture Improved Support Program aimed at offering critical support to hinterland villages to boost agricultural production. The program is funded by the International Fund for Agricultural Development under the ministry's Hinterland Environmentally Sustainable Agriculture Development Project, the ministry said in a press release. And at this time, we close things off by turning the pages of today's Kaieteur News to page 7, dedicated to being blunt. Would Exxon really walk away from rich Guyana? The new production sharing agreement terms are reasonable, though on low side. The new PSA must apply to Exxon's pending projects in the Stabroek Block. Is there anybody in Guyana or the world that sees Exxon walking away from Guyana? Is there anyone at Exxon who would consider leaving Guyana if new PSA is applied? We say no, Exxon will not. We say also that Exxon must pay. And that brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different